Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Sunday, May 25th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. It looks like a comfortable day ahead for Riverside, with the high temperature expected to reach 77.7 degrees and a cooler evening with a low of 59.8 degrees. We have a couple of important stories for you today. First, we'll delve into a significant debate as we examine the Digital Equity Act, looking into the reasons why this legislation, aimed at bridging the digital divide, is facing accusations of being racist. Following that, we'll turn our attention to a growing concern: new text message scams. We'll investigate how these increasingly sophisticated schemes targeting DMV customers are successfully outsmarting advanced security defenses, and what you might need to watch out for. All this and more coming up on Alex's News. Stay tuned. We're tracking a major debate this morning over the Digital Equity Act, designed to bridge America's digital divide, but now under fire from former President Donald Trump. Our reporter Ethan is here with the details. Ethan, what exactly is this act?
Grace, the Digital Equity Act, part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, aims to promote digital equity with $2.75 billion in grants. Information from Perplexity API and Tucson.com shows these grants support state-led planning and digital inclusion activities. It was championed by Senators Murray and Portman and Representative McNerney, with the pandemic highlighting the urgent need for such measures.
So, a significant effort to get everyone online. But former President Trump has strong objections?
He does. On May 8th, as reported by State Scoop and Broadband Breakfast, Trump called the act, quote, racist and illegal, end quote, on Truth Social. He labeled it a, quote, $2.5 billion giveaway, end quote, and a, quote, woke handout, end quote, vowing to end it. WSLS also noted his use of the term racist. He clearly wants this program logged off.
Logged off is one way to put it. How are commentators reacting to such strong criticism?
Stephen Teskey, in an Arizona Daily Star opinion piece highlighted by Tucson.com yesterday, called this a, quote, dangerous reframing of equality as discrimination, end quote. Teskey argues that labeling the act racist because it helps underserved communities, which include racial minorities, is a, quote, weaponization, end quote, of terms like, quote, woke, end quote. He believes true equality requires being, quote, color-aware, end quote, to address historical disparities, not ignore them.
That's a strong counterargument. So, Ethan, why might critics like Trump deem the act unconstitutional? What are the specific concerns, according to Perplexity API?
Perplexity API outlines that critics focus on a few points. First, the targeted funding for underserved communities, which often include racial minorities, could be seen as race-based. Second, eligibility criteria focusing on these communities might be viewed as categorizing benefits by race. And third, implementation guidelines emphasizing outreach to historically underserved groups could be interpreted as favoring certain races.
And what's the defense from the Act's supporters against these claims of unconstitutionality?
Supporters, also noted by Perplexity API, argue these provisions lawfully address documented historical disparities in Internet access. They contend that rectifying past discrimination is a compelling government interest, so these efforts are not unconstitutional. It is about leveling the playing field, ensuring everyone has a fair connection.
It's a complex issue with deep divisions over intent versus impact. It seems the signal is still scrambled on how this will be resolved. Ethan, thanks for shedding light on this for us.
You're welcome, Grace.
That's our first major story this morning. We'll have more news for you right after the break. And for our second story this morning, we're turning our attention to a digital threat that seems to be dialing up the danger. Many of us rely on our phones for everything, but now they're a key target for some very convincing scams. We have our news reporter Chloe with us to break down this latest wave of smishing. Chloe, these aren't just any nuisance texts, are they?
That's right, Grace. We're seeing a sophisticated and renewed attack, specifically text messages impersonating state departments of motor vehicles, or DMVs. It's a type of phishing known as smishing, which is essentially phishing via SMS or text message. According to reporting from NPR just yesterday, May 24th, state DMVs in New York, Florida, and California have reported a significant spike in these fraudulent texts.
So what exactly are these texts trying to get people to do? It sounds like they're trying to drive us to distraction.
They really are. These scam messages typically create a sense of urgency. They might falsely claim you have unpaid fees for traffic violations, missing toll payments, or that your government documents are about to expire. The goal is to instill panic, threatening penalties to pressure you into clicking a link or calling a number. These links often lead to meticulously crafted phishing websites that look just like official DMV portals.
And I imagine once you're on that fake website, that's where the real trouble begins?
Precisely. Or they might instruct victims to call a number, a tactic known as vishing, which is voice phishing. Whether it's on a fake site or on a call with a scammer, people can be manipulated into revealing sensitive data like driver's license numbers, social security numbers, or even banking details. Authorities are emphasizing that legitimate DMVs typically do not request personal information or solicit payments through unsolicited text messages. These scams are particularly insidious because they prey on our trust in government agencies.
It's alarming how widespread this is. Do we have a sense of the scale of this problem, Chloe? Are we talking about a few bad apples or a whole orchard of them?
It's definitely more than a few bad apples, Grace. The scale is quite staggering. That same NPR report I mentioned highlighted that Americans received an incredible 19.2 billion spam texts in April 2025 alone. And the financial impact is immense. Losses to fraud reportedly reached over $12 billion in 2024. The FBI and the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, actually had to intervene due to similar scams earlier this year, so this isn't an entirely new playbook, but it's certainly a persistent one.
$12 billion. That's a number that really makes you sit up and take notice. So with these scammers getting more sophisticated, what's the official advice for people to avoid getting caught in this text trap?
Vigilance is key. The New York DMV, for example, provides online resources about these phishing attacks. General advice from experts and authorities, as reported by NPR and Perplexity API, includes being skeptical of any unsolicited text asking for personal or financial information. A big one is do not click on links in suspicious texts. If a message seems like it could be legitimate, contact the DMV or the relevant agency directly using official contact information from their website, not from the text message itself. And, of course, never provide personal or financial details in response to an unsolicited text. People should also report these scams to the Federal Trade Commission at reportfraud.ftc.gov or the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center.
That's solid advice. It sounds like a multi-layered defense is needed from our end. But what about the bigger picture? Are regulatory bodies and telecom providers stepping up to block these messages before they even reach us?
They are, Grace. Perplexity API details several measures. For instance, the National Do Not Call Registry was expanded in January of this year to explicitly prohibit telemarketing texts to registered wireless numbers, though determined scammers often ignore this. The Federal Communications Commission, or FCC, now requires wireless providers to block texts from numbers known to be illegal. Carriers are also being encouraged to require consumers to opt in for email-to-text services, as many scams originate from email addresses. And as of January 27th of this year, new Telephone Consumer Protection Act rules mandate explicit, quote, one-to-one, end quote, consent for marketing messages.
So there are rules and roadblocks. What about the technology itself? Are the carriers fighting fire with fire? Or in this case, tech with tech?
Absolutely. Major telecom providers like Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile are deploying sophisticated AI-driven pattern recognition and machine learning models. These systems analyze text message metadata, content, and sending behaviors to detect and quarantine fraudulent texts. There's also more inter-carrier threat intelligence sharing, facilitated by the FCC and FTC to quickly disseminate information about new scam tactics. They're even working on extending caller ID authentication frameworks, like Stir/Shaken, which you might know from voice calls, to SMS traffic to better verify sender identities.
With all these countermeasures, from registries to AI, why are we still seeing these new waves, like this DMV scam? It feels like we're playing a constant game of whack-a-mole.
It's a very dynamic battle, Grace. Perplexity API analysis points out that attackers are also using AI to generate highly realistic messages that can evade detection, and these campaigns evolve rapidly. There's also something called smishing as a service, available on the dark web, which means even less skilled individuals can launch large-scale campaigns. And critically, human trust in SMS messages remains a vulnerability. Studies suggest 93% of people trust texts more than emails. Plus, these smishing attacks are often part of broader multi-channel campaigns involving email and voice calls, making them harder to isolate and stop.
It's a sobering reminder that we always need to be on guard. Chloe, thank you for navigating us through this complex issue and for those very important warnings. It's clear that while technology and regulations are catching up, our own skepticism is still our best line of defense against these text-based tricksters. Here are some other headlines. An Oregon man, Oliver Widger, quit his managerial job, despite being in debt, to sail 2,400 miles to Hawaii with his cat, Phoenix. Diagnosed 4 years ago with Klippel-Feil syndrome, a condition increasing his paralysis risk, Widger decided to pursue his dream of circumnavigating the world. Using safety gear and documenting his journey online, he arrived in Hawaii on May 24, 2025, greeted by fans and Governor Josh Green, hoping to inspire others. Meanwhile, Bruce Springsteen's music continues to reflect a political view of America, a theme growing more pronounced with age. Early songs like Lost in the Flood critiqued societal issues, and more recently he denounced the former Trump administration as, quote, corrupt, incompetent, and treasonous during a concert, also criticizing its immigration policies. This drew a retort from former President Trump, who called Springsteen, quote, highly overrated. Off Florida's Atlantic coast, a 302-pound loggerhead sea turtle named Pennywise is recovering after being hit by a boat. Too large for standard CT scan machines at local facilities, veterinarians took Pennywise to the Palm Beach Equine Clinic, equipped for horses, for a successful scan. The scan revealed a hopeful surprise. Pennywise is carrying eggs, and the team aims to return her to the wild soon to lay them. In political news, the Democratic Party is reportedly focusing on regaining support in Appalachian towns, particularly in states like West Virginia and Kentucky, which were once Democratic strongholds. The strategy involves deeper community engagement and tailoring policies to address regional needs like economic stagnation and healthcare, aiming to reconnect with voters who feel disconnected from the national platform. And finally, a unique citizenship question for Pope Leo XIV, the first American to lead the Catholic Church. Can he remain a U.S. citizen as a foreign head of state? Pope Leo is a natural-born U.S. citizen and a naturalized citizen of Peru. The answer is yes. Neither U.S. nor Peruvian law requires him to relinquish these citizenships. This is similar to Pope Francis, who retained his Argentine passport. The Vatican considers the Pope as embodying the Holy See, simplifying such matters. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 3.7, Gemini Pro 2.5 Experimental, Gemini Flash 2.0, Perplexity Sonar, Perplexity Sonar Pro, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.